Yeah. So, okay, we're recording. You're right. These two articles are pretty boring. And they are pretty much straight status quo. There are a couple things I want to point out, and Paul had just emailed me a couple questions as well, which we can address pretty easily. But let me go ahead and share my screen. And just get it up. All right. So can everybody see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so tonight's agenda, really everybody's here with the exception of Jen and Mark right now. First off, I know Paul had made a comment the other day about numbers not driving and not making sense when 20% of our budget is increasing by 8%, and how are we still at 3%? And I think that was my fault. And I just wanted to bring up the slide where I believe I made a comment during the budget workshop on this slide that showed our overall benefits being $6.4 million, and said that, 5 or 8% of $6.4 million is a $500,000 increase. And in mea culpa, that was me just doing back of the napkin math in the middle of a presentation and not really going into it. So I wanted to sort of explain how it trickles down and how our deductions actually hit the benefit line. So I have a few slides I just wanted to go over with you guys real quick to sort of explain how that's possible, just to clear up any sort of confusion or any, I just want you guys to all understand. So this is the slide that I had started with, and I was incorrect in saying that we are going to take an 8% increase on $6.4 million. That's really not how it is. So these are a summary of our FY24 benefits. So last year, we were at $6.8 million for all of our benefits. Next year, we're budgeted at about $7.1 million. So it is a 4.2% increase in benefits alone. But when we take that 8% increase, we're really only increasing the employer portion of a benefit that is being paid out. So we have medical benefits, we have dental, we have workers' comp, we have cash in lieu, we have unemployment, we have, a lot of different benefits that go into the category. So this is our health employer cost comparison. So in FY23, we had 347 members enrolled, and that was a total cost of $506K for us. FY24, our enrollment went down, so that impacts our numbers as well if we're adding 8% or whatnot. So in FY24, that 8% increase brought us up to $547K, but we have less members enrolled, and that's because of people choosing different benefit packages or whatnot. So on just the healthcare plan, that 8% increase that I had earmarked, that's a total budget impact of $41K. Now, we also do that for dental, and we do that for other benefits as well. But we don't put the earmark on every single type of benefit deduction that we put out there. We wait for the final rates to come out, and then we revise the budget before we present it to the board. So I get all of our rates that come out in April is really when they come out. And just wanted to share. So it's like group life, dental, health, workers' comp. So Paul, I hope that explains the difference. I just wanted to sort of put it out there and sort of get clarity from everybody that it was probably me misspeaking in the board workshop presentation that, I shouldn't have said 500K. So
that's great. Thank you very much, Max. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. So hopefully that clarifies that. The next is new business. We're going to review the status quo budget for Articles 4 and 5. Really just wanted to review, and we'll review the two slides that I had from the budget presentation about what those two articles represent. And I'm just going to, I guess I'll do slideshow real quick. I thought I said current slide, but I guess I didn't. All right, so Article 4, other instruction. So this really covers all of our co-curricular and extracurricular activities. So all of our clubs, all of our athletics, all of our sports, all of our stipends. It also covers summer school, community college and junior college education programs, and then as well as some post-secondary enrollment programs. Article 5 is our student and staff support, which, I know is near and dear to Lauren's heart. And, we're talking a lot about that in social emotional learning. So I think, we can have some discussions as to, where our staffing levels are and what some of our initiatives are for next year. We do have a great grant that we're going to use, other funds rather than the general fund to help support this article next year. But it won't be hitting our general fund budget. So it is split out into support services that serve students. So guidance, health, instructional technology, and other support services, and then support services that help instruction. So any curriculum changes, any modifications to the curriculum, any instructional staff training, so professional development, library services, and our student assessments. So that's what these two articles cover. And let me get out of that. And now we can go into the actual budget comparison. Let me make this larger for everybody. And before we go on, are there any questions?
When I was going through it, I was just looking at basically column E to try to see some like many major changes. And the thing that stood out was the nursing. And I know that you had said that you had a split nurse position, and then so you hired one for each school. So I'm assuming that's what showed up in here with those larger changes.
Exactly. So we did decide to absorb a nurse from an ESSER funded position into a general fund position. Do you remember what line that was on? I believe it was,
I think 135, 136, and then 144 or thereabouts.
Say that one more time, Paul.
The big deltas I saw were Excel line 133 or thereabouts, 135. I can't remember, something in that range. 144, 145.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the 245 on those two, and there's another one down. Yeah, 144.
Benefits, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So those are, the ESSER funded positions coming back into the general budget right there. And, that could have been a higher, a nurse that had, a family option on our health plan, as opposed to, the previous year she had a regular, and those are pretty much calculated straight from our financial system into this, which outputs the 245, but those really are the ESSER funded positions coming back in. And then the benefit deduction could be the same thing. It's a calculation based off of what they've selected as a healthcare plan year over year. So that will, create some changes in the overall percentages there.
Other student support services was coming in low this year. I don't have a line number for you, but Article 5, other student support services is the main title.
Yeah.
Below health services, I think. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Trying to think of where you're looking at, Sarah. Below health services.
Sorry. Yeah. I have one of your sheets that you gave us the FY23 expenditures year to date. You gave us a couple months ago, and then of course I printed out the 310.
Okay. So yeah, I believe that there are some changes that are, happening for other, other support services. That would be in Article 5, but there's Lauren. Let me let him back in. Let me speak to guidance services as well. So guidance services, They're a little bit low. When you put in a vacant position in guidance services, so I have to budget for the 2 vacant guidance counselors that we have at OHS. So I really don't know what step they're going to come in at. As a new employee, they typically cap out at step 6. And I also just have to make a judgment call on what I think they're going to select and elect as benefits. So I typically choose our most popular benefit package, which is employee plus 1. So it's, 2 adults that's covered. And that is a little bit lower. If a guidance counselor was to come in and choose, the family option, that is going to be a much higher benefit cost to the district. But I try to keep it, as equal and as average as I can, and I select those packages for them. So that is going to show a budget surplus in there, because we're not budgeting enough if they come in and select the family plan. But I try to make my best judgment on that. One other thing I wanted to point out, the temporary employees for games, I had to include 25,000 in next year's budget. Just because those had been covered under ESSER funding in previous years, and we need to fund them out of the general fund this year. When I took a look at pre-COVID years, that was right around where we were at. I think we were coming in at like 26,000 in FY18 and FY17. So I had to plug that in to make sure that Troy has his coverage for his games there.
The other student services is 913 through 927.
Thank you. 913 through 937, right?
927.
Okay.
And I'm just really talking about the total. I think you just,
Well, that doesn't jive with.
Oh, I must have a different sheet then.
Yeah.
I think
So we may have plugged those holes since the sheet that you're looking at. Okay. So I use this report. What?
All these sheets.
Yeah, it's
I really went through all this, when you sent out the first one, I didn't realize we were going to be getting, I mean, I understand that
it's a process, and Sarah, trust me,
Yeah.
I had to teach myself like 2.5 weeks ago that I need to date every single sheet that I download. Otherwise, I have no idea what I'm looking at. So it's a learning curve for me. But now everything you have that comes from me should have a date included on it from now. Okay.
The one thing to know about all of you folks is your learning curve together, right? So as you go through this process, and if you ever feel like, wait a minute, I'm not, just normal, just completely normal, be okay with it.
Yep.
We just get better at it all the time.
There was one other thing, and I didn't write down the number. It was stipend CCS. Does that?
Yep. So
I didn't know what that was.
was.
Oh, Cushing Community Schools. So there was some, there was like a section of those, and they were higher. Not the amounts didn't seem high, but the percentage was higher than before, and it stood out to me. I don't know that we need to know all the details, but that's what.
Yeah. So PLCSS, this is our teacher mentor program. So there are teacher leads that mentor new teachers, and the teacher leads get they get a stipend for doing that and providing feedback. And Stephanie had requested that we up the budget for next year, just because it's been doing a lot of good for our new teachers, and it builds community within the schools. So we thought that was a good investment to put money towards that next year.
Great. And now that I'm looking at it, it's a pretty small
amount
anyway. So
but,
yeah, I had only looked at the percentages right before we got on here, and I didn't remember what they're for. So that's great. Thank you.
No worries.
So I think like the other student services, like I said, I'm looking at, year to date actual is 5,000, and it's budgeted for like 41,000. And I know you just described, Max, there's positions that probably haven't been filled, and but can you describe a little bit more? The previous year's actual was 29,000. So can you just describe maybe the process that you go through when thinking about you know, how you guys are going to modify that budget.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, we want student services in there. And if we have vacancies in ed techs that are providing those services or whatnot, we don't want to trim headcount just because we haven't been able to fill the positions. We want those services available for our students, and we want those services available for our teachers. So I am going to budget for them, and we are putting a lot of effort into recruitment and selection this year. I think the ed tech shortage is rampant across a lot of school districts in Maine. And our ability to fill those positions was, you know, it was challenging this year. But by no means do we want to, you know, underfund next year because we, you know, are under budget this year. We want to keep those heads, keep those positions, make sure that we're filling them, and make sure that we have the supports ready for our students next year. So that's going to be a huge focus of Allie and mine towards the beginning of summer and throughout summer, is just really selling RSU 13 as a great place to start your career. And, you know, some of the, you know, easiest foot in the door positions are ed tech 3s. So it could be, you know, somebody with a BA degree that really doesn't have a teaching certificate yet, but we want to get them in a door as ed tech 3, and then, you know, promote them into teachers in the following year and year after. So
one of our tech integrators is actually putting together a recruitment video and wants to interview me as part of the recruitment video. So we're doing all kinds of things to try to get the word out there that we're looking for employees.
Not in that section too, that it was as equipment, furniture, and fixtures. For our modulars, do we have that covered in the budget elsewhere? Do we have furniture and all that stuff going in there?
You know, funny you should ask. That is something I'm working on right now. So with the modulars, we have made a few change orders that have improved the overall interior of them. So we got a different flooring. They initially wanted like fire protected walls, and we asked them to do it with drywall. We're asking them to paint. So we've asked for some upgrades, and the town, the zoning office, is also asking for a wetland study and potentially some landscaping that wasn't originally budgeted. So we were going to pay for the modulars out of ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 out of remaining funds, and we've done a really good job protecting those funds that we know we have like 3.7 million that is available for these modulars. The initial quote from Nadler came in at 3.8 or something, not 3.8, 3,800,000 or something like that. But with our change orders and with the potential projects that the town is asking, that funding has shrunk to, we have about 220,000 to work with. So that's something I'm currently working out. I don't have an answer for you right now, but I'll figure it out.
The more I learn that is on your plate, Max, it's just like crazy. Like, John, I know you're kind of like doing all these different things. It just seems like wild to have a business manager that, you think it's like financials, but all that touches is just crazy to me. So
I don't do it all.
I know you have a team and that are all doing all these things, but to have, a brain looking at all that stuff, just.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially Kelly, I think for people like you and I who don't have those kind of brains, right? We're like, how do you do it?
But yeah, I mean, I think between myself, John, and Steve, we have our finger on the pulse on these plans, and our architect, WBRC has been good. I think it takes a little bit of project management to get everybody on the same page, but Steve's doing a lot of great legwork for us and getting really good quotes and working with vendors. And there are a number of projects that we are taking on. And we didn't get any bids for the interior ADA project at the middle school to renovate the middle school bathrooms right in front. So the state has given us the okay to sole source contractors. So right now we're looking at contractors and, you know, requesting some quotes and seeing if they're available, but it's really late in the game to get a contractor for any construction work that's going to happen this summer. So on some of the projects, we may be looking at the following summer, and we're going to have to work with the state to get an extension, but I don't foresee a problem with that. You know, like I said, Article 4 and 5 are, I don't want to call them boring because they're really important, but in terms of the status quo and what came out of that, there weren't any large changes other than the nurse, the $25K for the game day stipends, and, you know, a few other things. So I think overall, where we're at on these two articles is really comfortable for me. I don't foresee any major changes. Let me just get to our totals here. So between these two articles, we're at 104, so 4% increase in Article 5 support, and a 7% increase in overall instruction. So.
And this one feels a lot more set than Article 1, other than benefits, which you can't do anything about until they give it to you in April. Does that feel right?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
I think John mentioned last time we talked to, you know, we really love boring budgets, and we do. No major surprises to the taxpayer, right? It's like, yeah, you know, and staff feel well supported, and we've got great programming for our kids. But if in the end of all that, it's really boring as a budget, bingo.